you know how everyone knows how Acme has the firewood outside.
Right.
I've even said, like, how don't people just steal that? Like, they leave it out all night long as well, too. Well, Representative Brady proved me wrong.
This is Dr. Curry.
This is Kobe Owens.
And welcome to The Source. Well, Kobe, it has been a very, very busy week this week. We are hearing so much going on in the local news that we may not be able to hit much of the national news.
I know.
Tell me what's going on with Brady resignation all of a sudden.
Yeah, so some of you may recognize that name. We've said it quite often on the show, especially over the last few months. Representative Gerald Brady was the representative who got busted sending racist emails talking about Asian American women and sex trafficking. Now, this is not why he is resigning from the General Assembly. He's resigning effective February 4th. In a statement, he cited that he had been diagnosed with PTSD and that he was going to be resigning to deal with that and deal with his mental health. A few days later, the story got even more interesting. It comes out that Representative Brady had actually been arrested and released on his own reconnaissance, but had been arrested for shoplifting down in Newark.
Oh, my gracious.
So then all the stories started flying about what he was taking. Come to find out, another day later, he had done this multiple times, and got away with it because they couldn't identify what car he went to. They just had a picture of a man taking a shopping cart full of stuff and walking right past his self-checkout and out to his car.
Wait. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Do forgive me. You have a state representative.
Yes.
And the reports that I have read is that this is not the first time.
Right.
But this time he is just stealing.
Yes.
Do they need a raise?
No, they make good money. So on December 29th was the first time that the store recognized him stealing, right? And it wasn't until January 12th he was doing it again, and a store employee confronted him. And kind of from that, he acknowledged that he hadn't paid for the shopping cart full of stuff. Put some of the stuff back, left out the store, but then came back and got firewood. You know how everyone knows how Acme has the firewood outside. I've even said, like, how don't people just steal that? Like, they leave it out all night long as well, too. Well, Representative Brady proved me wrong. People do steal it, and they got caught. So he took 9 bundles of firewood and put into his trunk, and that's when they saw his license plates, which he has a special state rep license plate that has his initials on it, so they knew right who it was right away.
Yeah, so what they used to call them kleptomaniacs, it's like he didn't really have a need to steal, but he stole because he guessed he had an alienated right.
Yeah.
And then he blames his resignation on what is that terminology again?
PTSD, postpartum stress disorder.
And it's so amazing to me how certain communities are very big on labeling their wrong by something that has occurred in their lives. This is why I'm often critical of African Americans who, when we have issues, we don't want to forgive each other for things that may have happened in our past, but they will quickly do it. How dare he? How dare he?
Yeah. So, to be fair, I did know he served over in Iraq and Afghanistan during the conflict over there.
So that makes you still?
No, so, he is a veteran, and I do know they deal with that. But this situation, a lot of people believe that when they made that statement about the PTSD and they were full aware of what had truly happened, that he was just using it as a cover, which isn't right, because it really takes away from a true issue that a lot of veterans deal with,
right?
Especially those veterans who saw conflict, right? Who lost friends and family over there, and fellow soldiers. So I don't think it was right to use it as a cover. Now, if he is dealing with that separately, I hope he gets the help he needs, because I know the trauma that can cause.
Right.
But in the statement, it was wrong for them to neglect what truly happened with the criminal side of things.
Yeah, and that's where I was getting ready to go with you. How come the arrest? Later on in the show, we're going to have a brief conversation on the Darius Brown case, but I really want to make sure we understand his mugshot. Was that in the paper?
Yes.
The first day.
Not the first day, because I don't believe anyone knew the full extent of what was happening.
Yeah. Why would they not know when they saw him on camera? Why would they not know when they saw him twice doing it?
Because at the time the story broke, he had not turned himself in. He put out the statement first, then turned himself in. So the stories came out that he was just resigning due to this. And then once the alert came out about the arrest, that's when the story started being updated and everything.
What are they going to do with his seat? He resigning as of when? Next year?
No, he's resigning as of February 4th.
Okay. Why so long? Why not as of effective immediately?
So that I do not know. I know, I'm guessing he won't be in session, but he won't effectively leave until February 4th. And that may have been a strategic thing to give time for the Department of Elections to be able to set up a special election. What this does, it triggers a special election where any party that is an officially recognized party here in Delaware can nominate someone in the special election. Usually it's the Democrats and the Republicans. In past, we've had Green Party candidates be nominated before, Independent Party of Delaware, and Libertarian, or usually like the five that will do something. This district used to be Republican. It's now overwhelmingly Democratic. You have a ton of former electeds who live in that area. You have a ton of political staffers who live in that area. It's the Trolley Square, Highlands, 40 acres, goes out into the county as well too, almost to Greenville, Centerville, Hocassin area.
What are they saying? What is his constituents saying? Have you heard anything?
So I haven't talked to too many of them. A lot of them are in shock that he did something like this, and they're trying to figure out why two different stories came out. I know a lot of them were conflicted over the comments he made, and a lot of people have raised their voices to say he should step down, even though they're not Asian American. He did not represent their views of the Asian American community. The Asian American community activists that came together after his comments, they're glad to see him resign, but they said right away that they believed it was something more behind the story, and they were right.
Okay. Well, we'll say we'll be watching, and I'm looking forward. Do you know what the process is now? So they're going to have a special election. Who will lead that?
So it's a few different things. So the governor has to call a special election and send it to the Department of Election to be recognized. Once the Department of Election recognizes it, it triggers the process. So they have about 30 days. So we're looking at probably it could be anywhere between the end of February, beginning of March, right? It's going to be the time. From there, you'll have people go to different committees. So I know at least the Democrat and the Republicans will probably hold an official meeting where people who are interested can make their case. And the members who live in the district for the Democrats will select their Democratic nominee. The Republican Party will select their Republican nominee. Now, like I said, there's a ton of former electeds who live in that district on both sides. On the Republican side, you have former State Senator Anthony Del Colo, who's still very involved. He's the attorney over on the Senate side. He may want to go for that seat. On our side, you have a school board member, Adriana Bohm, Dr. Adriana Bohm, who's on the Red Clay School Board. You have former Councilman Bud Frill. And then you also have former candidates like Sean Barney, who's run for Congress and state treasurer and also ran for 8th District Council. So you have a lot of people in those areas. And then you also have activists as well, too, who can galvanize support. So it's a huge toss-up on who's going to get it.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna sit back and I'm going to watch. I'm going to do our investigation as we always try to do, so we can get that reliable news. But I'm just mesmerized how it was handled as opposed to how some other things are handled. And again, those individuals who do suffer with that same type of illness, I feel sorry for them that he used that as an excuse. He served as a state representative, do you know for how long?
For 16 years.
For 16 years. And in 16 years, you're telling me now all of a sudden this illness has come upon you. I didn't buy it and will not buy it. Let me move a little bit further. I was shocked this week when I heard the news that the City of Wilmington Council had voted, or was going to hold a vote of no confidence for the chief of police. I did share with you last week that I had a very good conversation with the chief and that we needed to give him an opportunity to present some of the things that he had shared with me. I try to be fair. If I don't know you, I try to figure out, how can I get to know you and whether or not you're just blowing smoke up, And I felt good about the conversation. But obviously, the city council must have had enough. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so, on a show last week, we talked about the special public safety meeting that took place and, the conversations that kind of came up around diversity within leadership of our department, as well as what is truly going on, what strategy is being implemented to address some of the violence that we saw, right? So 2021 was the most deadly year here in the city of Wilmington. It was 50% of the state's shootings took place within incorporated Wilmington. That's of the 216 shootings, 113 took place right here. So what is being done to address that, and also what is being done to make sure there's equity in the department that reflects the diversity of our city?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
We are the 12th blackest city in the nation, percentage-wise.
Okay.
But yet, our police department doesn't reflect that. We have a huge Hispanic population here, but our police force does not represent that.
Wow.
And this is something that I know Council President Trippy Congo has talked about for, I know, at least 4 years, from when he was a district councilman, about the diversity and what is the plan to recruit more minorities. Right? So when you look at that and you look at what happened and the questions not being answered during the meeting, and really they believe that no effort had been made to change the diversity in leadership with the police, this resolution, this special resolution, emergency resolution, stemmed from that, right? And, Council President Congo said, to be clear, this isn't me or anyone blaming him for the homicides.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
They said he plays a role in stopping that, but it's not him. It's a bigger conversation.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
This is about the diversity, being more proactive, being more vocal on what you're doing to try to change the trajectory of our crime rate here in the city. Right? This also includes combating crime, increasing diversity, and also just improving the morale among minority police officers. they feel as though they're being discriminated against their own white counterparts and white officers in leadership.
Wow.
So the resolution, it ended up passing. So, of course, there's one vacancy on council, so that brings it down to 12 when Councilwoman Rashima Dixon resigned. Then you had Councilwoman Brigida Fields was absent from the meeting, so that doesn't count.
What district is she?
She's 5th District.
The 5th District, okay.
And then you have one person vote present, which is 7th District Councilman Chris Johnson, who presented the resolution on behalf of Council President Congo.
So, okay, let's stop there because I'm big on education. And those who watch us, they have been giving us great compliments that we do break things down. So Johnson presented the resolution on behalf of the council president.
Right. So the presiding officer cannot present legislation.
Okay.
So the original piece of legislation was Trippy Congo's, but yet because he's presiding, he let one of the co-sponsors do it.
Okay.
And Chris was one of the co-sponsors.
So he had to. Now he voted present.
Yes.
Is that the protocol, or why didn't he say yes?
So he believed some points were raised during a meeting by Councilwoman Walsh that the resolution broke FOIA laws because it was not presented in a timely manner to give the public enough time to be aware of it. Now, FOIA says the agenda has to be out a week in advance. Council can make updates to it as long as they don't completely change the agenda. They can revise the agenda a few times. Council president has the ability to put a special emergency resolution on if need be.
Okay.
If he deems it cannot take place at the next meeting.
Okay.
And that's what he did. And he said Council President Congo believed that he could do it because it's not a vote to remove the chief, it's a vote of no confidence. It's voicing City Council's opinion of the matter. So the no votes were Councilman Nathan Fields from the 8th District, Councilwoman Maria Cabrera at large, Councilman James Spadola at large, and Councilwoman Loretta Walsh at large.
Interesting. Interesting. That's all I can keep saying. Interesting. And the district, the ones who voted that he is confident are those individuals whose communities are doing fine. And I'm shocked at Cabrera, but I'm going to leave that there for right now.
And then the yes votes was Councilwoman Linda Gray from the 1st District, Councilwoman Sinead Darby from the 2nd District, Councilwoman Xanthia Oliver from the 3rd District, Councilwoman Michelle Harley from the 4th District, Councilwoman Yolanda McCoy from the 6th District, and Council President Congo.
Well, I think that's good.
Yeah, so because it was just a resolution, it only needed a simple majority, not 7 votes. And because of the situation with one member resigning and another member being absent, that's what brought the threshold down to 6 votes needed to be simple majority.
Now, there's 2 questions I want to ask in this one area. One, what is the mayor saying about this? I didn't get a chance to have any conversation with him. What is his feeling? Has he made a statement publicly?
Yeah, so before I get to that, again, the resolution passed, vote of no confidence, also calls for a third-party entity to do an audit of the police department to be selected within 90 days, right?
Okay.
Now, the mayor, on the other hand, the mayor of the FOP Lodge 1, which is the city's FOP union, says that they stand with Chief Tracy.
Okay.
The president, Michael Gorak, who is the president of FOP Lodge 1, says that this represents Congo's understanding is misrepresented of the morale of officers in the police department. Now, there is all type of stories going around from black officers about what is truly happening within the department and how they feel. officers telling stories that, you have white officers giving them trophies saying that, they're the whitest black officer on the force and stuff like that. Just that mental push and pull at someone's psyche right there. So it's all type of stories like that, and black officers not being elevated since Chief Tracy's been in. So I think they have to do a better job. But FOP Lodge 1 sent out a statement saying that they completely oppose the resolution. It has no authority, that President Congo has no authority to speak on behalf of the rank and file officers, which I completely disagree with.
I do too.
I think any council member should be willing to listen to and speak out on behalf of any of the city employees, whether it's officers, firefighters, public works, parks, whatever. That's council should be an extra voice of reason and concern when needed for any employee, and that's what you really have to focus in on there. So I disagree with that statement put out. But they also said they hold the mayor accountable. So, they're holding the mayor accountable for selecting Tracy. But also, the mayor kind of said that it's a sad day for the city when you have a city council pass a resolution because it does a disservice to the reputation of Chief Tracy.
Let me just say this, and again, I'm trying my best as a person who I consider to be fair, and I'm trying my best to not make too many comments, because I did have a meeting with the mayor, felt that was a good meeting. I did have a meeting with Tracy, and I thought that was a very good meeting. If he can execute some of the things he shared with me, great. It's been several years. They have not been executed prior to my conversation. But I watched the new mayor of New York. That's leadership, okay? Where I come from, I wasn't born in Wilmington. I was born in Philadelphia under a mayor, Frank Rizzo, who led the way. He was out at the crime scene when the bullets are flying. I looked at the mayor in New York and I said, this is what we need in Wilmington. A person who will get out there, see the issues, address them. If it means putting people in plain clothes, put them in plain clothes. If it means strengthening the training, giving these officers overtime with mandatory training on days off, do what we must to get our city under control. I offered my services. Not that I'm some professional at it, but I got suggestions. I don't know how it's a sad day for Wilmington when we still having some of the issues that we're having in policing. I think that it is the city council's responsibility to be able to say, I don't have confidence in this person. So the question now becomes, who's going to do the audit? Who selects that audit group?
So I believe it would be the mayor and the police chief who would select that third-party entity, and then that contract would probably go to city council for approval for a TPO there.
I hope your information is half right, but if I'm going to select the group that's going to evaluate me, I'm not too sure that selection will be impartial.
Well, it still has to be approved. The money has to be approved. The contract has to be approved by the city council. So they still have some say in who it is and if they believe it will truly be independent or not. But yeah, so, and again, the rule that council president used was Rule 8, which is resolutions of substantial nature shall be reviewed in the appropriate committee prior to the action by council. At council, the council president should determine whether or not a resolution requires a committee review. So that's Council 8. So that's how he used that to get it on the agenda versus having to go through the committee process.
Understood. Well, we're going to follow that, and we're going to stay close to that, because I really want the viewers to see unbiased reporting on this, because again, I don't have an issue with Chief Tracy as it relates to a person.
Right.
I think he's a nice guy. I was having a problem with my neck. He even gave me some things I needed to do in order for my neck to get better, and it did work.
Right.
I had a conversation with the mayor. I felt very comfortable, but we have to keep the issues at front.
Right. And see, and most of the council members made it very clear that this wasn't a personal issue with Chief Tracy.
Okay.
But the diversity, and I'll break down the numbers again. Wilmington currently has 103 sworn-in police officers.
How many?
301.
Thank you.
Sworn police officers, with 197 are white, 71 are black, 28 are Hispanic, and 5 are listed as other. Right? All 11 of the lieutenants of the Wilmington Police Department are white.
So you mean all lieutenants?
Yes.
Are white?
Yes.
Go ahead.
With 12 out of the 16 master sergeants also being white. So only 4 are people of color. And then the city census, the one that was delayed because of Trump and caused all these redistricting issues, recently stated that the city of Wilmington is 64.4% people of color. That is not reflected in our police department. So that's why they see a need. And all the members who voted for it were black members. They stuck together and said that this was a diversity issue. Now, other members, such as Councilwoman Darby, raised the point that she's also concerned about how policing is being conducted in this city. Talking about police brutality, some of the more recent cases that have kind of got some media attention, with the biggest right now probably being the Officer Waters beating the young man's head against the bulletproof glass over here in Southbridge. Right? He was fired.
Okay, yeah.
But he had other incidents against him as well, too.
Oh, yeah.
So, this is what is going on in the department, is what is going on in the public's light. So I think there still needs to be a lot of, effort put into diversifying our force, more training put into our force, but also you have to have a plan that can be communicated to the community.
Right.
You can't get this done. And I keep saying community empowered policing, right? Yeah. And emphasis on community, because you can't get any of it done without having them on your side.
Yeah, I was in the barbershop on Saturday, and I do get my hair cut in Wilmington. I spend my money in Wilmington. And one of the things that my barber and a couple of the people in the barbershop were talking about was that there's a certain corner that they know is known for selling drugs. For about 5 months, that corner has been cleared. And I said, so why was the corner cleared? Because they told me the officer's name is a part of it. He's African American. He's from Wilmington. They know him. And they felt they cannot disrespect him. When you speak of diversity, it's not about whether you're black or white, it's about you being able to identify with the community that you are representing. And just so happened, when they were saying that to me, I said, wow, I mean, because he's from this community, y'all have that, not y'all, they have that level of respect. And the answer was absolutely. So I think the mayor should take a page out of that book and say, we do need more African Americans, we do need more Latinos, and put them in those neighborhoods who know the people, so that the people will have the respect and we're going to see the crime go down.
And the officers, I'll say this, the officers I've seen who are either born and raised here in the city or they're not, but they moved into the city and they didn't leave after their 5-year requirement. They stayed in the city, got to know the communities they were in, got to know the communities that they were assigned to. Those are the officers that have the best relations. And,
that's right.
Even when there's an issue,
that's right,
they're able to easily de-escalate it because of the respect the community has for them. And that's what we need more of. We don't need more of just people who aren't known in the community coming in, trying to command a situation, and then it calls for escalated things to happen.
Well, and I'm going to say this, and I said this before a couple years ago to the General Assembly, and I'm going to say it. Wilmington is not a place of low-life people. Wilmington is not a place of where the poor and the trash is. I believe if you are a police officer or a city employee, you need to live here. You need to live here the same way when we built this church. People were saying, put gates up because they're going to come and break into cars. How can I fight for something if I'm immune from it? In order for us to be able to address the ills of our community, we must be a part of it. You cannot work for several hours and then leave the community and think you're going to get the respect. I think they should do away with it. If you are a police officer, if you are a city employee, you need to live within the city of Wilmington. We have police officers live all the way up there where I live at. I ain't going to say no more, but I'll be right back. We're going to have a quick break, and we want to come back and just say a couple words about the Darius Brown case. We'll be right back.
I'm getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Yes, there could be some short-term side effects from the vaccine, but they go away in a day or two. Those are signs that my body's building protection. It's worth it to avoid serious problems from COVID-19 disease.
And we're back. Kobe, I want to talk a little bit about the Delaware teachers. They're feeling that they're drowning with the shortage of staff. There's a clash with the quality of education. Let's look at this real quickly.
This crazy level of exhaustion for teachers after only a few weeks or months in school. And I think that really starts to get out just how tough things are. What we're seeing is that teachers are burning out and there's not enough substitute teachers to backfill. And so with no subs and tired teachers, schools are actually having to close their doors or go back to remote learning. It's a real blow for administrators and teachers who really hope to have kids back in the classroom all this year. It's easy to forget as we travel around the country and sort of things get back to normal in businesses and restaurants, that in schools in particular, because there are so many unvaccinated students, that there are a lot more precautions, and that makes it just a lot harder to do the job. Teachers say that they're exhausted, that they're struggling with the same mental health issues as the rest of us. They're trying to take breaks, but when you don't have enough staff to backfill when a teacher wants to go on vacation, that makes things really hard. So you've got administrators covering classes, you've got school gymnasiums full of students who are just sort of piled in there because there's not enough staff to look after them and keep them safe. Things may get worse before they get better, because even though a lot of schools have acquired billions of dollars in funding from the Biden administration, it's not like you can whistle up thousands and thousands of new teachers overnight. And it's not like you can whistle up thousands and thousands of substitutes or bus drivers or cafeteria workers overnight. I talked to a bunch of different teachers and administrators, and everyone says the solutions are going to be found at the local level. But on a big picture, they think this is time for the country to have a real honest conversation about the role that teachers play in America and the role of public education in the entire country, because we're asking schools to do so much these days, and we've piled on pandemic response and mental health counseling on top of everything else.
Well, and I have to sympathize with them in that COVID has done a whole lot to the education system. Delaware has been behind in our teaching of young people, but I just don't know what to say.
Yeah, everyone's being pushed to their operational limits right now. It's very hard in a school setting when you have so many students who go home, they don't wear masks, they're exposed to everything their parents may have been around, everything's their older or younger siblings may have been around, and then bringing that back into the classroom and then teachers having to deal with that. Everyone knows that your favorite sub was usually the older teacher who was retired, come in and let you do a little whatever. They don't really have the subs like they used to. So, schools, the system is stressed right now. And, this is why, the Delaware State Education Association and their president, Stephanie Ingram, is calling for a better plan, right? Maybe we have to go back to the hybrid where, some are in school, some are virtual, or maybe we have to go to virtual for a little bit to give time for teachers to really recover or something like that. But there has to be a better plan that works for the people who are actually working in the classrooms.
Yeah, and I have another suggestion too, because I was not a proponent of the online because even here we had a lot of children we brought here because they didn't have computers at home, and we had bought some computers, and we wanted to make sure that children got their lessons done. And most of the times it's the poor, brown, the black children who are suffering. But I think that if we're now trying to deal with this Omicron variant, then maybe we should have allowed the children to stay home and use the summer as their time to finish up their school. I don't think that summer is some right. Sure, we want to go to Disney World. Sure, we want to be out playing. But extend the school year. When we have snow days, we do it. We are in a very bad what do you call it, coronavirus, and we really need to be able to think of some creative ways. I just don't agree with the online as much because it doesn't help our children as much.
Right, but it's not just teachers, and maybe I misspoke earlier. It's bus drivers. Yeah. You know, bus drivers are now having to double up on routes, right? Kids are getting home later, getting to school later. It's the custodial staff. The people who are supposed to be able to clean each day and sanitize against COVID, they're getting sick as well too, and their numbers are down. You have whole cafeterias and auditoriums full of people being supervised by just one adult, right? It's just overbearing right now due to these shortages, which we're going to continue to see, unfortunately, because we're still not out of this.
But if everybody get vaccinated and we get out of it in March and we go to school until August, we'll be fine. Close the schools down until we get everybody vaccinated and let's open them back up and go on for the 9 months. We're supposed to have 180 days, to my understanding. So
I'll say one thing. This pandemic, you know, my getaway from politics would be I would watch The Walking Dead. It's, 12 seasons. It's like weird, but that's what I used to do, right? And I thought one time, I was like, oh, if we ever had a zombie apocalypse, I wonder who would get bit and then still try to, be around people, knowing that they're going to turn into a zombie. Those same people who may get bit are the same people who are the anti-vaxxers. Yeah. And we have a lot of them in Delaware. And another thing is we have all these different school districts up and down the state. Now, some of them are on the thinking that we got to protect the students, we have to protect the staff. Then you have others who are making this political, that wearing a mask means you're liberal. Then you have some who say you got to wear a mask or we're going to be virtual for our meetings. But the students in schools, they shouldn't have masks. So you have a lot of people on the spectrum in different parts of this. So until we get the people in power all on the same page, we're never going to be able to address the schools.
Well, one of the things I think the reason why is because you got the politicians who are the ones dictating a lot of it, and they're not educators. But I just believe that we need to take a moment and stop, drop, and roll, as they taught us when there's a fire. And I think that we really need to just schools should be closed until we can get through this variant, and then we just need to extend it through the summer, because at the end of the day, we're going to keep having this problem. This problem is going to be here next year this time if we don't get this right. You saw what happened. You hear about what happened with Sarah Palin, whatever her name is?
Yeah, her court case was supposed to be starting up in New York, right? It's the defamation case.
No, not that one. No. When she was tested positive one day, the next day she's in the restaurant eating. With no mask on.
I did not know that.
That just happened this week.
I know she tested positive and it delayed her case.
Yeah. And she's right up in the restaurant eating and having fun with everyone because, hey, let's share the germs. It is just egregious and it's really bad. And I would not allow my child to be in a classroom where it was not required that masks will be a part of it.
Yeah, no, and it's not just masks, it's just testing as well, too.
That's right.
Make sure you get tested.
Every week.
President Biden is sending more tests so that students and teachers can get tested and, stay in school program.
Right.
So, they're trying to do everything they possibly can to keep the kids in school. Again, it's just this variant is so contagious, and it's really affecting a lot of people.
Well, all I can say is I feel sorry for our teachers. I'm an educator. Most of my degrees are in education, and I feel bad that we're in the predicament that we're in, but we probably need to just stop and get it cleared up and then move back into it. The last thing I want to do in this segment before we go to my favorite part of the show is I just want to say a couple of things, and let's hear a little bit. This whole State Senator Darius Brown situation, I read an article where they said that the black community is split and that some want him gone, some don't want him gone. They criticize the ministers or IMAC and NAACP for supporting him. And then there's a group saying he's a woman beater and all this other stuff. But, let me just tell you where I sit. I don't think that we're divided. I think we have special interests. Mm-hmm. There are some people who want certain things to occur. We said we would wait until we hear the facts. Once we heard the facts, then all I decided to do was to follow the facts. The facts did not lend itself to him beating up his girlfriend. The facts did not follow that he cussed out and verbalized the state representative Brown. So I just say where I am, I believe that he needs to be restored because he has done so much. And again, if he did the things that he was accused of, I don't care how much he did for our community, I would have been the first one saying you need to resign. Mm-hmm. But because none of the facts that I've seen have lent itself to it, that's why I am where I am.
Yeah, I think there's, two things happening here. So we're now in a time that hopefully the culture is changing more, mm-hmm. right? We've had, at one point in time, domestic violence was legal, right?
Yeah.
And, we've talked about this a lot. It was to the fact that if a wife was at home, she called the cops, her husband beat her. Mm-hmm. That cops would show up and not do nothing. Mm-hmm. Oh, stop complaining, right? They didn't believe them. You look at what happens on a lot of college campuses mm-hmm. where sexual assault happens, right? Mm-hmm. And either nothing or very minimum things happen. We talked about that with the frats earlier, right? Last year. Mm-hmm. So there's a system where there has to be that give and pull of fair investigations mm-hmm. and fair point going forward, right? Right. So I think, with any of these situations, you have to sit back and let each individual incident be investigated.
That's right.
Now, the court system has found him not guilty, mm-hmm. right? Now, you had the conversation, and we talked about this. We had the conversation with Senate leadership mm-hmm. about the ethics committee mm-hmm. and that there hadn't been a complaint put in.
That's right.
Right? So right now, technically there is no ethics committee, right? Mm-hmm. Now they're saying they're going to have one unless, leadership can take the vote on it or it's going to be someone files a complaint. Mm-hmm. What you stated was that you believe Darius should be returned to his committees.
Yes.
I believe he's only on one committee right now, right?
Right now, yes.
Yeah. I think it's public safety, right?
I can't remember which
I can't remember either. So I think with what happened, there should have been different steps taken as well. Mm-hmm. And one of those steps should have been, and this is just, if I was leader, I would have said, you also have to complete anger management training in order to get back on your committee. Mm-hmm. But you have to look at this as how can we be kind of proactive to make sure this doesn't happen again mm-hmm. versus always just being punitive, right? So look at the whole situation. Mm-hmm. How can we make sure everyone is safe at work, mm-hmm. but everyone who needs help gets help? That's why I said earlier with Brady, if he is dealing with PTSD, I hope he gets the help he needs.
Right.
If Darius is dealing with anger management, mm-hmm. I hope he gets the help he needs. Mm-hmm. But there has to be that proper steps taken
right.
in order to do that.
And we should, and I agree with you, we should not be so punitive that soon as something happens,
Right.
weigh with whatever the reason, the cause, the history, and just assassinate the person. I don't agree with that.
Right. I believe in restorative justice.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
So,
And some of the people who are against what we're talking about say they do too, but they do not.
yeah, but there still has to be time, right? In restorative justice, a wrong is committed, right? Which triggers everything. But the focus should be on who was harmed, how were they harmed, and what is the need that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
Right? So I think if you look at things through that lens, that clears up on both sides. Everyone is kind of digging in now. It undigs us, or I don't know how to properly say that. I'm just going to say undig. And really looks to the heart of the situation. Now, there has been decades long of abuse to black women.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That I think also needs to be addressed. And we got to look at that through that restorative justice of how do we get better as a community of holding ourselves accountable and also restoring that harm, not restoring, but addressing that harm that has been done to restore that love and trust.
Right. And I think that, we want to be sensitive. We want to be sensitive to the injustice that has occurred with women. But at some point also, we need to be a little sensitive to the injustice that has been done to black men. Now, let me be straight with you. For those of you who are watching us, affirmative action was written to support black men who were in the workplace, who were not able to get in and to get the promotions and things of that nature. But when it was enacted, it helped white women and black women. And we still were left out holding the bag. Does that mean a black man has a right to beat up a woman? Nah, it doesn't mean that. Does it mean that we ought to do something that's illegal? No. But we got to understand that there is a whole lot of injustice. And what we should be doing is binding together to try to deal with a system that is racist. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Dr. Cindy, and I'm here with Asha. What would be the thing that makes you say, you know what, now's the time?
I've been on the fence for a while about whether to get the vaccine or not, based on, things that I've heard, things that I've seen. Seeing those kind of things just gets you a little scared. It's like, I think everybody should have a choice. Could the vaccine possibly affect my ability to have kids in the future?
Here's the real kicker. If someone got COVID-19, the illness, and they were pregnant, their chance of miscarriage goes up by over 3 times as much.
I didn't think about COVID-19 possibly affecting your reproductive system, because my mom, she was barely able to have kids. It was a miracle that I was able to be here. It was very important for me to know that, and now I am a lot more secure in getting the vaccine than I was.
And we're back. My favorite part of the show, Kobe's Corner. What's going on, Kobe?
Yeah, so big news came out earlier this week that Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer is going to be retiring at the end of the current term that SCOTUS is in right now. So SCOTUS starts her term in October of 1 year and finishes the first Monday of October the following year. Okay. So it started October, the first week in October 2021, and they're finishing in October 2022. So 2 main things there, right?
So does that mean 1 seat?
1 seat.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So these are lifetime appointments.
Right, right.
He'll be 83 at the
Right.
time of his retirement. He says he's in good health, but he also recognizes, we don't want to make the same mistake that we did with RBG, where her staying on the court and then passing away under the Trump administration,
Absolutely.
right? So he doesn't want the Senate to then flip And then Republicans do the same thing they did with Merrick Garland, which sit on a nomination for, 8 months, but then also put Amy Coney Barrett on 8 days before the election.
Right.
But this will be very interesting to see what the Republicans' argument's going to be, right? So right now, October, the first, week in October is only 30 days away from what? Away from the election.
Okay.
Which again makes this an election appointment. Now, the Republicans have set the precedent that if you got 8 days and millions of people have already voted, you can still appoint someone to the bench.
Absolutely.
So I think the Democrats should do the same thing.
Right.
Right? And with this...
Although the Democrats tend to try to follow the rules, but go ahead.
Right. So with this, right, you're going to have President Biden have to live up to one of his campaign promises.
Yeah.
One of his main campaign promises when it came to SCOTUS and when it came to the court system period was he was going to nominate more black judges. And for Supreme Court, he was going to pick the first black woman on the Supreme Court. When Biden took office in January 2020, or January 20th, 2021, there was only 5 out of 300 appellate court judges, 5 black women on him. He's already doubled that. He's had the fastest track record of approving judicial nominations due to a rule change that the Republicans did to kind of speed up the process with Trump judges. So Biden has done a good job with that. But that means, will we finally see a black woman on the Supreme Court?
Oh, we will. We will.
Now, when it comes to the Supreme Court, we have Thurgood Marshall.
Yes. First
and
black
we have
male.
Clarence Thomas.
Who is that?
He is the current and only
You mean the black guy
African American.
who supports Trump and,
Yes.
and the only one voted? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just messing with you.
And he's probably now one of the more conservative judges.
Oh,
the most conservative judge
Thank you. Most,
on the
yes,
court.
Yes.
So even Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and Neil Gorsuch have all gone against Trump rulings before.
Right. I know.
But Clarence has become the depending vote.
Do you think, and this is nothing to do with your report, but I think Clarence have an issue with black people because of
I'm glad you
because of
said
that
it.
whole pubic hair on the coke. You know, when we was, I don't know if you was too young. You was too young. We
I
both
don't
said,
remember that
oh,
one.
okay. I know there are people looking and say, "Oh my God, Curry, remember it back then." But he, this woman, she really tried to give it to him, and he made it through the process. But he just hate black people. Go ahead.
Yeah. Now, there is a judge who's seen as the front runner. She was appointed to the appeals court in D.C. To replace Merrick Garland when he stepped down to become our U.S. attorney.
Okay.
Now, Judge Brown Jackson, she was voted onto that court by a 53-44 margin. 3 Republicans chose not to vote for her, voted present, and 3 voted for her. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and a shock was actually Lindsey Graham. Right? So she would be seen as someone who's already got bipartisan support. Just earlier the year before,
Right.
as someone who could possibly move up to that seat.
Right.
She's 51 years old, and very, Harvard College, Harvard Law. The next person is a Supreme Court justice out in California, the state Supreme Court. And she's viewed as another person who brings strong credentials, but also she's younger. She's 47, and could be, the opposite of Amy Coney Barrett or Brett Kavanaugh, who are both young. They're in their 40s. I think Brett is now 49, and Amy Coney Barrett's 47 now. So Trump did a good job at nominating judges, getting them on, but getting young judges on, young conservatives. We have to do the same thing on our side because this, right now with this political makeup, things are too in flux. Things are going to keep swinging back and forth for a while. And in order to make sure our values are protected, they have to nominate judges who can stand on the bench longer.
Yeah, and now we only need 51.
Now we
Not
only need
60.
51.
And let me also say that well, I'll hold that for later. Go ahead. You can go.
No, so in the young lady from California is Justin Kroger,
Right,
a
okay.
black. So these are two black women. Now, there's already organizations saying, hey, we just want to remind you of your campaign promise.
Right, I saw that.
So hopefully he stays to that. Now, if another opening happens on the Supreme Court, we would hope that he would also nominate another minority to the Supreme Court. There's a long list of qualified people. Now, if he wanted to be a strong Delawarean, if there's a second opening on the Supreme Court, I know an attorney that is very bright, that is very pro-civil rights, and that's Brian Stevenson.
Okay.
And again, you don't have to be a judge to be on the Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett was a law professor.
Right.
I think if another opening happens, a good person to go on the bench would be Brian Stevenson. That's just me. Maybe it's the Delaware in me.
Okay. That's a good choice.
I think
I
he's
support that.
amazing. Right? But, when we're talking about this is going to play in heavily to the election cycle and everyone's talking points about what's going to happen over the next 2 years under President Biden's administration. Now, moving on to local, right? We've been talking about voting rights a lot. There's HB 75 passed the General Assembly last year with bipartisan support and has failed this year. And that is a constitutional amendment to remove the circumstances that says you have to have an excuse to vote by mail. Right? Now, it was relaxed because of the pandemic. Everyone had an excuse. They want to make that permanent. Now, vote by mail with no excuse is available in 34 other states, including Washington, Oregon, Utah, all these other states. So we want to make sure we can also live up to that as well too. And that goes a part of expanding voter access here in the first state. Now, it still needs 2 more votes in the House because the Republicans are withholding their votes. Now they're buying into election fraud and all this other stuff, now that Trump lost.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of work to do. Hopefully it gets passed. It should be coming up for another vote, hopefully soon.
Okay.
But that's where we're at with things right now. We talked about my other topics already, but I really wanted to hit in on those two. And both of those are going to have impacts on what is going to happen in our election come November, both on a local level and on a national level.
Real quick, and you got to answer these real quick because we're running out of time. Number one, why have there not been a person coming forward to say they're going to challenge Manchin?
Because everyone kind of understands that the Democratic Party down there is on his side, and they're willing to be with him. And what about Sinema?
Sinema.
So a poll just came out that showed that a Congressman, Ruben Gallego, from Phoenix area, is beating her in a primary 76 to 14.
Oh, Jesus.
So a lot of people are trying to recruit him to run. You have progressives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's saying that she would support Ruben if he was to primary her in 2024.
Do you still feel that we're going to lose the House?
I still believe that we're going to lose the House if it's going to come down to Florida versus New York in the redistricting map, and then with all these retirements and some of this redistricting, we're only up by 1 or 2 seats right now.
Yeah, I believe, and I'm going to say this on our show, we're going to keep the House.
Really?
And we're going to keep the Senate. And now you're going to say to me, how do you think that way? Stay tuned.
I have more faith in the Senate.
Okay. Well, okay, you have faith in the Senate, but not
the House.
Okay. Stay tuned. Well, Kobe, thank you so very much for the time we shared together today. This has been a great show. We got a lot of stuff covered today, and we got a lot more news that we certainly can bring to you, but we try to bring the things that we feel is very helpful and meaningful to you in your everyday life. So I want to just thank you so very much, and remember to mask up, wash your hands, stay distant. Let's get rid of this Omicron variant so that we may be able to return to normal. Anything else from you, Brother Kobe?
No, yes, just stay masked up, get vaccinated, be safe.
Well, until the next time, this is Dr. Curry.
This is Kobe Owens.
See ya.
Take care, y'all.